20 minutes. Funny how a number can suddenly feel like a ticking heartbeat, isn't it? You've lived years pretending you have time. Time to fix things, time to change, time to get up from your knees and stop begging the world for mercy. And now suddenly everything feels urgent, alarming, like the walls are closing in. And someone up there finally slammed the door and said, "Enough people only wake up when they feel the fire licking at their heels." When someone whispers that everything they took for granted might slip right through their fingers. Oh, now you want to listen? Now you want to move? When the countdown starts, every second sounds like a slap, doesn't it? Every breath feels heavier, like it's carrying the weight of all your excuses, all your tomorrows that never came you. What's funny? People always think doors close because something went wrong. They panic, they cling, they scream at the sky like children who lost their favorite toy. They don't realize sometimes the toy is broken. Sometimes the toy is poison dressed as comfort. Sometimes the door didn't close to trap you. It closed to keep you alive. And isn't that hilarious? How life protects you while you kick and punch against the very thing saving you. You call it bad luck, betrayal, rejection, failure. It whispers evolution, transformation, escape. But most can't hear whispers. They only understand explosions. So here you stand, in a hallway that suddenly got very quiet. Door behind you sealed shut, no turning back. And your first instinct is fear, isn't it? That shaking in your bones, that doubt crawling up your spine. The voice saying, "What now? Why me? What am I supposed to do?" But the truth? You were never meant to stay where you were. You outgrew the room long before the door slammed. You just wouldn't leave willingly. People rarely do. So life nudged you. Gently? No. It pushed you with both hands and a smirk. Because comfort makes cowards, and nothing kills destiny faster than getting used to small spaces. You think the shutting was punishment. It was protection. From small dreams, small minds, small versions of you. You were feeding crumbs to giants inside you, and giants don't live on crumbs. They starve quietly until one day they roar, and that roar shakes everything you thought was stable. Suddenly you have no job, no person, no plan B, and you mistake collapse for death when really it's rebirth. Funny how rebirth always looks like ruin first. Beautiful things don't come wrapped in perfection. They come wrapped in shock, discomfort, chaos. That's the language of change. Look around. Every great shift in your life came after something ended. Every victory had a funeral before it. Every level demanded a version of you to die. You think doors close randomly? No. Timing is too sharp for coincidence. It's like being pulled out of a burning room while you're still arguing with the fire, insisting it didn't feel that hot. That's how denial works. People stay in flames because they recognize the heat. The cold unknown outside the door scares them more. But the flame doesn't care if you're used to it. It burns anyway. And the moment that door locked, your excuses lost their home. Your comfort evaporated. Your illusions cracked like cheap glass. Good. You needed that. Destruction wakes the sleeping. Nothing wakes you like a forced ending. Suddenly you see clarity in places you ignored for years. Suddenly you realize the people you chased were holding you back. Suddenly you remember who you were before compromise sank its claws in. Pressure squeezes truth out of people. When the door shut, your truth started screaming louder than your fear. The world tells you to be grateful for what you had, but sometimes gratitude is just another word for settling. You weren't meant to cling to what was fading. You're meant to walk toward what's calling. And moving on isn't always noble. Sometimes it's messy, loud, ugly. Sometimes it's done with shaking hands and a cracked smile. But movement is movement. Progress doesn't care if you look graceful. It only cares that you don't stay trapped in yesterday. The door didn't close to punish you. It closed to release you, to drag you out of rooms that were shrinking around your potential. To stop you from watering dead gardens and calling it loyalty, to break the spell of familiarity that kept you blind to your own stagnation. You think loss means you weren't enough. No. Loss means the chapter finished reading your character and knew it was time for the next act. So breathe, stand in the hallway long enough to understand, not panic. Doors don't close without meaning. When life removes something, it isn't robbing you, it's replacing you. But replacements don't enter unlocked rooms. They need space, they need silence, they need endings to make room for beginnings. And yes, it feels violent sometimes, unfair, abrupt, but growth rarely asks permission. It arrives with a grin, knocks everything off the table, and says, time to evolve. People cling to comfort like it's salvation, like familiarity is some kind of sacred blanket, stitched with safety and meaning. But here's the trick. Comfort lies. It whispers sweet nothings while slowly tightening its grip around your throat. You think stillness means peace, routine means stability, predictability means control. When in reality, comfort can be the softest poison ever created. It doesn't kill you quickly. It sedates you, pats your head, and sings lullabies while your dreams suffocate quietly in the corner. And then one day something happens. A door slams. A chapter closes. A note drops like a hammer, and suddenly you're gasping, waking up, blinking in the harsh light of change. That's the moment most people panic. But that moment is not the end. It's the alarm, the warning, the mercy disguised as disruption. Chaos isn't always the enemy. Sometimes chaos is the rescue. Think about it. If everything stayed calm, easy, predictable, you'd sink into lukewarm existence and never notice your potential rotting. You'd mistake comfort for progress and call stagnation maturity. What a joke, right? Life sees you settling, sees you shrinking yourself to fit the walls you built, sees you trading passion for convenience. And it laughs, not to mock you, but to wake you, to nudge you or shove you, depending on how stubborn you are. Because when comfort becomes a cage, chaos becomes the key. Funny thing about transformation. It rarely comes wrapped in gentle packaging. It doesn't knock politely. It storms in, kicks chairs over, smashes your little illusions, and forces you to look at what you've been ignoring. The friendships that were draining you. The environment sucking your ambition dry. The dreams you buried because they felt too loud, too big, too dangerous. You call it loss, but tell me, what's really lost when the things holding you back finally fall away? Comfort convinces you that familiarity is safety, but look closely. Sometimes the familiar is what's limiting you the most. You can't grow in a room built for your past self. People say they fear change, but they don't. They fear discomfort. They fear being seen without the mask of routine. They fear stepping into uncertainty where their excuses can't protect them. Comfort is convenient because it asks nothing from you. But growth? Oh, growth is demanding. It asks you to release, to leap, to trust what you cannot yet see. So when life shakes you, when doors close, when comfort crumbles, that isn't punishment. That is rescue. That is the universe yanking you out of quicksand before you disappear into it forever. And don't pretend you didn't feel it coming. Deep down, long before the door shut, there was a restlessness, a whisper that said, "This isn't it." But comfort convinced you to ignore it, to keep playing small, to stay where you were liked instead of going where you were meant to rise. That whisper doesn't disappear. It grows teeth. It gnaws at you while you pretend everything is fine. And when you don't move, life moves you. It pushes. It closes doors. It strips away illusions until you're forced to face yourself without the pillow of comfort cushioning your denial. What's amusing is how people beg for blessings, but panic when the preparation looks nothing like they imagined. They pray for change, then cling to the habits and people that guarantee they won't change. They ask for growth, then cry when comfort is taken away. They want destiny handed to them like a gift box when destiny is forged through disruption. Comfort doesn't raise warriors, discomfort does. Pressure does, closed doors do. There's something beautifully cruel about the moment comfort ends, a silence that feels like abandonment but is really preparation, a void that feels like loss but is really clearing, a pause that feels like punishment but is really protection. It's almost comical how people think comfort is the safe choice, when sometimes the safest thing is to leave before everything collapses. But humans cling. They hold on to burning bridges and call it loyalty. They hug old versions of themselves as if letting go means dying, but sometimes letting go is the only way to live. So when comfort dissolves and you're pushed into unknown territory, don't curse the shift. Don't panic because the world you built suddenly cracked open. That crack wasn't a failure. It was a doorway you wouldn't open yourself. A forced exit from smallness. A divine shove towards something bigger, louder, sharper. Comfort tried to keep you cozy. Growth refused to let you shrink. And what a blessing that is, even if it arrives with broken edges and trembling hands. Fear. Such a loyal little pet, always sitting right by your feet, wagging its tail, pretending it's keeping you safe. People treat fear like a guard dog, when in reality it's more like a leash. Soft around your neck at first, then tighter and tighter, until one day you realize you are not guarding anything. You're just pacing in circles, convincing yourself you're moving. It's funny how fear dresses itself as logic, as caution, as being smart. But the truth? Most people are not cautious. They're scared. Scared of failing, scared of being seen trying, scared of looking foolish, scared of leaving the predictable cage they've decorated like a palace. They call hesitation wisdom, but it's nothing more than fear wearing a borrowed suit. And here's the real joke. Fear doesn't show up when things are hopeless. No, it shows up when you're close. Right before the shift, right before the breakthrough. Fear isn't the sign that you're in danger. Fear is the sign that you're standing at the edge of your next life, and the old one is screaming to pull you back. You don't get scared when nothing is changing. You get scared when everything is about to. That trembling in your bones, that tightening in your chest, that voice telling you to slow down, to go back, to wait for a sign. That isn't weakness. That's the door creaking open. Fear doesn't show up to stop you, it shows up to test you, but most people fail the test. They think fear means stop. They think uncertainty means turn around. They think discomfort means danger, when really those feelings are the GPS of transformation. Nothing meaningful grows in comfort. Nothing powerful evolves in silence. To grow is to stretch, and stretching hurts. But humans, they worship comfort like a religion. They bow to predictability, cling to routine, treat the unknown like a monster under the bed. They never question why their dreams feel impossible. They only question themselves. That's the tragedy. They never see the bars on the cage because they painted them gold. Fear is clever, too. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Later, just wait. Make sure you're ready. Maybe next month. Oh, that's the sweetest lie fear offers. The illusion of later. Later becomes never. Time slips quietly like water through fingers, and one day you wake up and realize fear didn't stop you in a dramatic moment. It stopped you every boring day with tiny excuses. You didn't say no to your destiny, you postponed it to death. But here's what fear hates. Action. Fear can haunt thoughts, cripple decisions, poison imagination, but it cannot survive movement. Once you step, even with shaking legs, fear loses its grip. It feeds on hesitation. It starves on momentum. People think courage means feeling strong. No, courage often looks pathetic. Shaking hands, dry mouth, heart pounding like war drums. Courage isn't loud. Courage is quiet resistance to the voice that says turn back. And isn't it hilarious how fear lies about outcomes? It paints disasters, humiliation, downfall, as if staying where you are guarantees safety, but staying still is the biggest risk of all. Life punishes stagnation, the same way fire punishes wax. Slow melt, quiet ruin. If fear truly protected, we'd all be thriving in our safe little boxes. But look around. The safest people are often the most restless. The ones who avoided failure carry the deepest regret. They would trade anything to go back and choose fear's opposite. Not bravery, but forward motion, even sloppy, messy, uncertain motion. Fear always tells the same story. If you move, you may lose. But it never tells the other side. If you don't move, you will lose. Lose time, lose potential, lose pieces of yourself until you become nothing but a memory of who you might have been. That's the real horror story, not failure, regret. People fear falling, but they should fear staying, because falling teaches, builds, sharpens, staying dulls, staying kills. So when fear climbs into your chest and whispers warnings like a protective ghost, smile back at it, not mockingly, but knowingly, because fear isn't proof you shouldn't move. It's proof the moment matters. It's proof the ground under your feet is shifting because the universe is rearranging things for you. Fear is the checkpoint before transformation, the final guard at the gate, and the only way past it is forward, step by trembling step. Until fear realizes you are not owned by it. You are fueled by hesitation, such a gentle assassin. It never storms in with knives and alarms. It doesn't shout or smash windows, no. Hesitation is polite. It knocks softly. It pulls up a chair. It smiles. It tells you to think a little more, to wait for the right moment, to just be certain first. It feels harmless, almost wise. And that's the trick. The most dangerous thieves don't take everything at once. They take it quietly, slowly, piece by tiny piece. Hesitation doesn't steal your opportunities in one dramatic moment. It steals your life in little delays that feel reasonable. What a sneaky little monster. People like to believe their future is sitting patiently, waiting for them to be ready. They imagine time as this generous, forgiving friend that will always come back tomorrow, next week, next year. They don't realize time has teeth. It bites the ones who treat it casually. One delayed decision, one postponed dream, one moment of waiting just a little longer, and suddenly you look around and the chance is gone. Not because it wasn't meant for you, but because hesitation convinced you you had infinite options, infinite hours, infinite second chances. That lie is delicious and poisonous. Urgency, on the other hand, is wild. It's uncomfortable. It's loud, impulsive, almost impolite. It doesn't care if you're scared or tired or unsure. Urgency doesn't wait for perfect clarity. It moves while clarity forms behind it. People fear urgency because urgency exposes them. It forces action. It makes you choose, and with choice comes risk. What if I mess up, they ask, but here's the real question. What if you don't move, and life moves without you? What if the door that's open now closes forever while you're sitting there rehearsing your brave speech in your head? What if the worst thing isn't falling, but never jumping? Look closely at anyone who built something real. They didn't wait for perfect timing. They didn't sit there polishing their confidence like a trophy. They moved when they were half ready, scared, shaky, unsure. They acted while doubt screamed in their ear, and that's why they made it. Not because they were fearless, but because they didn't worship hesitation. They chose urgency. Even when urgency felt like chaos, they understood something most never do. Hesitation pretends to protect you, but urgency saves you. Urgency burns excuses like gasoline. People love to say, I'll start when I'm ready. Ready? That's laughable. Nobody is ever fully ready. Readiness is not a doorway. It's a result of stepping through the doorway. You don't become ready before you act. You become ready because you acted. Waiting to feel prepared before moving is like waiting to get warm before stepping near the fire. The warmth comes after the step, not before. But hesitation whispers, just wait a little longer. And people believe it, not realizing they're sacrificing destiny for comfort disguised as caution. Let's talk about the graveyard, not the one in the ground, the one inside people. The graveyard of ideas they never tried, talents they never used, courage they never tested. Hesitation buries more dreams than failure ever could. Failure at least gives you scars, lessons, stories. Hesitation gives you nothing but haunting maybes. And believe me, maybe is heavier than any loss. Regret is a ghost that follows you forever, whispering what could have been. Urgency doesn't demand that you rush blindly. It demands that you move while the window is open, that you trust momentum more than comfort, that you value time like it's fragile, because it is. There's something almost tragic about watching someone capable, talented, full of potential, weight themselves into mediocrity. They keep their ideas in their head like delicate glass, afraid to drop them. Meanwhile, someone with half the talent but twice the urgency builds, tries, fails, rises, wins. Not because they were better, but because they acted while the other one hesitated. Effort beats waiting every single day. Motion beats intention. Action beats planning. Always. Life rewards those who move, who dare while others doubt, who jump while others pace. Urgency doesn't mean recklessness. It means honoring the moment instead of worshiping fear. It means seeing opportunity and grabbing it with both hands before hesitation can whisper its beautifully destructive lies. Because life doesn't pause for your hesitation. It doesn't freeze in place until you feel brave. Time walks forward whether you move or not. And if you don't step with it, it leaves you behind, quietly, cruelly, without apology. Sure, hesitating feels safer, but the safest prison is still a prison. Urgency breaks locks, hesitation polishes them, and one day, when the doors are closed and the hour is gone, you'll wish you'd listened to the fire in your chest instead of the comfortable whisper in your head. When life removes someone from your path, people rush to grieve as if they lost treasure, as if the story is ended, as if absence is always tragedy. They romanticize what left, Polish memories, rewrite histories in their heads. Funny, isn't it? The human mind loves to turn loss into worship. But let's strip the illusion. Sometimes the absence isn't loss, it's rescue. Sometimes someone leaving isn't a wound, it's a cure. The universe isn't sentimental. It doesn't care about your attachments, your nostalgia, your wishful thinking. It cares about your destiny, not your comfort. And when somebody's presence begins to rot your growth, life drags them out, whether you release them or not. People think the dangerous ones are the loud enemies, the dramatic betrayals, the obvious villains. No, the dangerous ones are the soft anchors, the ones who seem harmless, the ones who smile while quietly dimming your spark, the ones who clap politely when you win but feel heavier around you every time you rise. The universe sees those things you pretend not to notice, the silent jealousy, the subtle discouragement, the little digs disguised as jokes, the slow poisoning of belief, and it removes them for you, like sweeping glass off the floor before you cut your feet. You may cry over the broom, but the floor becomes safe again. Do you know why some people vanish when you start evolving? They weren't built for the version of you that's emerging. They were companions for chapters you've already outgrown. You don't take every childhood toy into adulthood. Why take every person from one stage into the next? Some were only meant to hold your hand at the beginning, not cheer you at the climax. And if life let them stay, they'd drag you backwards so you'd fit their comfort zone. The universe knows this even when you refuse to see it. So it closes doors, silences numbers, dissolves connections, sometimes with a clean cut, sometimes with a violent tear, but either way it protects your future from the grip of your past. People whisper, why did they leave? What did I do wrong? Oh, the ego hates unexplained exits, but sometimes nothing went wrong. Things went right. Sometimes the break wasn't punishment, it was prevention. Imagine trying to carry a cracked glass bowl filled with water across a marathon. No matter how tightly you hold it, it's going to spill, shatter, and cut you. But if someone snatches it away early, you scream, not realizing they saved your hands from bleeding later. That's what divine subtraction feels like. It looks rude, painful, inconvenient, until enough time passes and you see the disaster you were spared. Look at nature. Trees shed leaves, snakes shed skin, birds push their young from the nest. Growth is not gentle, separation is natural, but humans cling. They grip relationships like lifelines, even when they've turned into chains. Loneliness frightens them more than stagnation. Familiarity seduces them more than evolution. They stay loyal to people who fear their potential. They beg for crumbs from tables they already outgrew. They shrink themselves so others don't feel small. What a tragedy to imprison your future just to avoid discomfort in the present. And here's the bittersweet part. Not everyone removed from your path was bad. Some were good souls, but not good for your calling. Some loved you, but loved the weaker version of you more. Some needed you, but only when you were small enough to carry them. The moment you began to rise, the balance shifted. You don't lose people when you level up. You reveal who is attached to your elevation and who is attached to your old limitations. And sometimes the most loving thing life can do is remove what you refuse to release. You must learn to trust the exits, trust the silence, trust the sudden distance. Not every goodbye needs a villain. Not every closed door needs drama. Some endings are just cosmic timing, cleaning your path, pruning your circle, sharpening your alignment. You cannot walk into destiny weighed down by expired connections, and you don't need to chase or explain or fix what's been divinely redirected. When someone exits, let the universe keep its rhythm, because one day, maybe months from now, maybe years, you'll look back and laugh at what you tried to hold. You'll see the truth so clearly. Some people weren't removed to hurt you, but to make space for those who can stand beside your greatness without trembling, without resenting, without shrinking you to feel tall. And that day, you won't mourn the exit. You'll be grateful for it. You'll whisper, "Thank you for leaving. You made room for everything meant to arrive." Loss. People treat it like a funeral every time. They wrap themselves in grief, whisper tragic lines about endings, act like the universe ripped out their heart on purpose. But loss isn't always the villain. Sometimes loss is the surgeon, cold, steady, necessary. Sometimes it cuts not to kill you, but to save you. And oh, how dramatic humans get when something is taken from them. They forget that holding on too tightly can choke a blessing to death. They forget that clinging to what's dying only makes the rot spread. They think losing something means they weren't worthy of it, but sometimes losing something means it wasn't worthy of who you were becoming. That's the twist no one sees coming. Life has this mischievous way of clearing your path before you even realize what's blocking it. You cry over the door closing, not realizing what stood behind it had already expired. It's like mourning spoiled food in the fridge. You're grieving trash while your future is knocking, asking for room to enter. But humans love old flavors, familiar tastes, predictable meals. They eat the same comfort till it numbs them. And when life sweeps the table clean, they scream like something precious was stolen. No, it was replaced before it could poison you. Loss is not always destruction. Sometimes it's detox. People romanticize pain. They hold on to it like a souvenir, polish it, show it off. They say, "Look what I lost. Look how I suffered." As if suffering grants them meaning. But loss is not a trophy. It's a turning point. It's a shift in gravity. And most people miss the shift because they're too busy staring at the empty space instead of the path ahead. They forget that new chapters don't begin with drum rolls. They begin with silence, confusion, a sting in the chest. They forget that the universe doesn't hand you gifts while your hands are full of yesterday. It forces you to drop what you cling to, no matter how tightly your knuckles lock. You know what's funny? How people demand transformation but whimper when the process starts. They pray for strength, then curse the weights. They ask for clarity, then cry when illusions break. They want growth without loss, rebirth without burial, evolution without shedding the skin they've outgrown. That's not how it works. So you can't step into a bigger life wearing old sizes. Life removes the excess first, the people who can't go with you, the habits that sabotage you, the beliefs that strangled your potential, and you think you're being punished. But tell me, how can a prisoner complain when the bars are broken? Only someone who fell in love with captivity would mourn their cage. Loss has a way of stripping ego. It quiets you. It humbles you. It forces you to face yourself without the props you leaned on. And that's where the real shift begins. In the stillness after things fall apart, most people panic at that silence. They rush to fill it with noise, with distractions, with replacements. They rebound from pain like it's fire instead of sitting in it long enough to understand it. But if you can stomach that stillness, if you can study what left without begging for it back, you see truth. You see who you were pretending to be, who you were afraid to be, who you can become now that the dead weight is gone. And here's the part that stings. Sometimes the loss is you. Sometimes you lose an old self you were so comfortable with. You feel naked, stripped, unsettled, and that's terrifying. But it's also liberation disguised as emptiness. The version of you that fit your past does not fit your calling. Losing that version hurts, but carrying it longer hurts more. You don't rise by dragging ghosts. Loss prepares the stage. It clears the audience. It shakes the curtains. It whispers, "Are you ready to step into who you truly are, or will you cling to who you were?" Most people say they want destiny, but worship familiarity. They fear stepping into the unknown more than they fear wasting their life. So loss comes like a thief, not to rob, but to force release, to pry your fingers open when you refuse to unclench them. And someday you look back and realize nothing was taken. Everything was traded. traded for strength, clarity, upgrade, alignment. You don't break from loss. You shape from it. You don't fall apart. You fall into place, and you don't end. You shed time. Now that's a funny little thing everyone pretends to understand. You clutch clocks like they're lifelines. Whisper about someday, talk about tomorrow like it signed a contract to show up. Oh, how beautifully delusional. You walk around as if the world owes you hours, as if you're guaranteed sunsets and second chances. But time isn't a kind parent. It's a quiet thief. It doesn't knock, doesn't warn, doesn't bargain. It just slips through fingers you thought were tight enough, tick by tick, breath by breath. While you stall, postpone, procrastinate, plan like you're immortal, people believe they're running late when truth is, they're already bleeding minutes they can never recover. And the saddest part? Most don't realize they're in the final chapters of their own story until time starts turning the pages by force, not choice. You ever notice how people always say, I'll start tomorrow? Tomorrow, the great fictional land where motivation magically appears, discipline grows like flowers, dreams suddenly become easy. Tomorrow is the grand stage for all the lives that never get lived. People sit in cages built from not yet. They romanticize potential like it's enough on its own. They fantasize about results without ever meeting the grind halfway. And time watches, amused, as you lull yourself with excuses. Because you don't lose your future in one dramatic moment. You lose it minute by minute, habit by habit, delay by delay. One day you look around and realize later has turned into never, and the only thing louder than the ticking clock is regret laughing at you. Humans treat time like currency they can earn back. They bargain with it, just a little more comfort. Now I'll suffer for the dream later. But life doesn't operate on loans. It charges up front. Success demands payment in discipline, sweat, sacrifice, and people try to bargain with laziness. They think time waits because they feel busy inside their heads. They confuse overthinking with planning, dreaming with doing, but time has no sympathy for mind chatter. It rewards those who move, who act, who dare. And the clock doesn't care if you're scared, tired, insecure, confused. It keeps moving anyway while you sit still and call it preparation. Funny thing, you chase distractions like they're salvation. Screens steal your hours, gossip steals your focus, comfort steals your hunger. You waste precious seconds feeding habits that starve your potential, and then you cry about not having enough time, as if time is the criminal here. No, the crime is not urgency, it's your loyalty to delay. You cling to comfort like it's oxygen, forgetting comfort is the quietest killer. It doesn't destroy you suddenly, it dissolves you gently. A little compromise here, a little delay there, and suddenly you wake up in a life you never intended to settle for. People drown not in oceans, but in minutes they never valued, and when time finally raises its voice, a crisis, a loss, a scare, a shock, suddenly you feel alive. Suddenly urgency appears, clarity arrives, fire sparks. That's the cruel comedy of existence. You only value time when you sense it's slipping. The heart beats louder when danger whispers. Deadlines awaken discipline. Mortality awakens meaning. If urgency can change you in crisis, imagine what it could do if you invited it before chaos forced its hand. Most wait to value breath until they can't catch it. They worship routine until it becomes a coffin. But here's the secret. No one wants to face. The life you want doesn't hide behind fate or luck. It hides behind urgency. Behind the uncomfortable choice, the disciplined hour, the action you avoid. Time rewards action, like gravity rewards falling. Consistently, without exception. Those who move early build what others beg for later. Those who chase minutes instead of waiting for moods bend destiny in their direction. The clock is not your enemy, it's your mirror. It reveals what you prioritize, not what you pretend to value. You think you have time because you feel alive. But feeling alive is not evidence of time. It's the illusion of it. One day the clock won't be background noise, it'll be the only sound you hear. You'll rewind your memory and see every moment you could have pushed, tried, dared, and nothing haunts louder than the hours you wasted willingly. Urgency isn't